Thank you all for coming. Just keep in mind, this is our first one. So in format, it's an experiment. The basic idea of this was, now that we are live with our new Beetcoin site, and we're trying to figure out how to get the word out about it, obviously. There's a number of questions that will come up tonight. The obvious ones are, how does it work? And then secondly, how do we get the word out about it and how do we grow it? So those are the themes, right? The thought of these Beetcoin dialogues was just to create a regular, informal venue for us to connect. Obviously, we're trying to build a large network here. I mean, this is just me. This is just the chief pot washer, whatever I am, saying what I wish would happen. And that is that we'd get rid of the first 1,000 donors, and then we get to 10,000, and then we get to 100,000 on our way to whatever. And that we'd create a major new grassroots flow of capital to do what no other source of funding has yet done, which is really build a significant mass movement to support small organic farms and local food systems, and do it in a way that is empowering the local groups and where money stays local and recirculates. So that's the basic idea behind all of this. And because on this call, I know there are a lot of people who haven't had much contact with slow money in the past, and then there are some who have been extremely active. So it's kind of a challenge. You just have to we just have to find our sweet spot here. But so I'll say, for the benefit of all here, that slow money in the first 10 years, while it had, I would say, a fair amount of success creating informal flows of capital, meaning $80 million to over 800 things over 10 years, that's some amount of success. We never had an online portal. We never had a clickable thing. We never had a way to engage a large number of people more quickly. And we always joke about going slow more quickly, right? So, so I'll just say to myself, for the people who are on the call, maybe half of you, I don't know that, I'm just going to guess, that maybe half of you have been actively involved in slow money along the way, and other half are more curious and have been maybe tracking us from a distance. I would say to the half that have been very active, we should be proud of what we accomplished in the last 10 years, and we should also be very cognizant of the fact that it isn't nearly enough. Or put another way, that we should push ourselves to try to build on it so we can get a lot more done in the second decade. And that's the spirit of Beetcoin. Slow money is a meme, it's an idea. Beetcoin is a brand. Now I'm speaking to all you right now as if we were all activist partners trying to figure out how to do this together. And I know that's a little presumptuous because many of us don't know each other yet. But that's the spirit in which I'm going to address everyone tonight. Like, we all want this to happen, and we're trying to figure out how to make it happen. And we need to learn as we go. And so this is very much a kind of continuous learning thing. So Beetcoin is a brand that I believe, based on my conversations to date with lots of different people, has the power to attract people online and to build a large flow of capital. And it's critical. Every time I say the word large, it's critical that you think not large like all in one place large, like lots of small things all over the place, decentralized, that stay decentralized, and all the funding decisions get made at the local level and money recirculates at the local level. So I hope that most of you have been on the Beetcoin website already and poked around and seen that idea. But if there's any question about improving the website or clarifying how that's going to work, that's all on the How It Works page on the website. And I hope you'll go back to it after tonight to make sure that you think it reflects what we've talked about, et cetera. I think somewhere on this call, maybe Susan Brady is there. I know she was registered, and I'm mentioning her name because after the Louisville event in 2014, Susan approached me. She might have still been living, she was still living in Aspen then, she lives in Carbondale now, and said, I'd like to do something in the Roaring Fork Valley. I'd like to do slow money here. And so that was when we hatched the idea of 0% loans. And it's important, again, just to say for the historical footnote, and I'm really going to stop in a second because we don't have time for me to do too much, but I wish I had time to give more background, and over time, all of this stuff is going to come out. But now is when I should say all the $80 million of slow money went basically through direct loans, individual, two people, 3 people, 5 people, giving a loan to somebody. There was no structure. There was no one interest rate. Most of them were low interest loans, but there was no one interest rate. And so when Susan approached me, I was already feeling pressure. That was back in 2014. How do we create some structure for this? How to create a way where it's not just angel investors, where lots of small people can participate. How do we build something for the future that grows, that isn't just you do a few transactions and when you're finished, you go on vacation and that's all that ever happens. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's not building something for the future, right? It's not really creating enough systemic change. So that's where the seed of the 0% thing happens. So Susan, if you're on, thank you so much for your vision and helping get the Two Forks Club started in Carbondale. And a few years later, we saw that was working. And so then we started the same thing in Boulder, where I was living at the time. I've just moved to Providence, but and with the help of Tana and several other really true blue people in Boulder, we were able to replicate the experience of the Two Forks Club in Boulder. Both of those groups are now up in the range of $500,000, $600,000, just to give you a little tiny bit of data there. And now that model is starting to replicate. There's a soil group in Salida, Colorado. There's another group in Durango, and there's a group in Virginia. So there are 5 groups now around the country making 0% loans in the spirit of what we're talking about. And there are groups starting in, there's a group starting in Jerusalem. I'm very happy to report. There are serious inklings in China. One of our Beetcoin advisors is in China. If you haven't gone on the website and looked at the bios of the Beetcoin advisors, please do that, because as much as anything else, that will tell you how serious we are about this and the quality of the people we're engaging to do this. And I'm very cognizant of time limits here because we want to get to conversation. I mean, we have a special guest, Roberto Meza. I'm going to introduce him in 1 second. He's going to speak for around 5 minutes. It's a ridiculously constrained format, but we feel like it's imperative to see what happens when we all start talking to one another, even though it's going to be hard to manage with this many people. So to wrap up here, there is going to be a call to action today. I'm going to say it now and I'll say it at the end. It's super obvious. It's like ridiculously obvious. We want you to give. We want you to click and give to Beetcoin, not because your $25 or $50 or whatever you're going to give is going to get us over the hump. It's because we got to start this flow of capital. We want you to share this idea with your friends. That could be ad hoc or it could be strategically, meaning it could be more collaborative with us if you have a network and you want our help getting the word out. I want you to read my book. And it's not because I'm trying to sell a book. The book is available free online. But a lot of work went into that book to collate, synthesize the conversations that I've been having with people around the world, mostly in this country, but sometimes outside, about why what we're doing is resonating, why it's important, and why we need to carry forth. And so there's a lot of history in there, there's philosophy, there's anecdotes. Please look at it if you haven't. You can start a soil group. That's a really high bar. I know it'd be great if 1 or 2 people said, you know what, I think I'd like to start a soil group, but that's obviously a different level of engagement. And last but not least, I hope many of you will commit to come on future Beetcoin dialogues. However bumpy today's first ride is, I hope you will see the value of a continuing conversation here, because I used to say when Slow Money started, and this is the last thing I'm going to say in terms of opening remarks. When Slow Money started 10 or 11 years ago, and I'd get interviewed, people say, what's slow money? And my first reaction was, well, what's a journalist? Can't you ask me a better question? But anyway, they would ask me what slow money is. And so I said, well, it's 2 things. It's a conversation. It's a nuanced, authentic public conversation. That's what I started calling it, about food, money, and culture. And that by itself is a thing, because I can already see that people want to have this conversation, a nuanced, authentic public conversation about food, money, and culture. And that conversation, if it's authentic, leads to action. And then the action is the lending, is the funding that comes out of the conversation. So it's 2 things. It's a conversation and it's flow of capital. And so now we're starting a next phase of the conversation around this idea of Beetcoin. So I do hope, no matter what happens today, no matter how you leave this, this first Beetcoin dialogue, you'll be intrigued enough or committed enough or whatever to come back to future ones and help us. We're going to have to figure out how often we want to do it, how to keep them from being too big if they get too big, whether some of them need to be webinar style with more curated content. There's all kinds of things we can figure out. So welcome. Thank you so much for showing up today. And I'm now going to turn it over to our special guest, Roberto Meza. And Roberto is here for a couple of reasons. He's actually a recipient of a 0% loan from the Soil Boulder Group. He is also a very successful small farmer and food entrepreneur in the Denver area. He's also a very accomplished social entrepreneur. He's on multiple boards and whatnot. And last but not least, he's a Beetcoin advisor. He's on the advisory board for Beetcoin. So Roberto, I don't have your image on my screen this moment, but I hope you're going to pop on right this second.
Yeah, thank you, Woody. And thanks everyone for making some time to join us in this gathering to learn a little bit more about how to support local farmers and food systems development, because it's an imperative need right now. I've been lucky enough, as Woody mentioned, to be one of the recipients of a 0% loan from Slow Money. And we were kind of an anomaly, because as I understood it, it was very difficult to get support for a startup farm. And it's super difficult to get a farm off the ground, especially for farmers that have student loans like I did. I'm a first generation farmer. I was born in Mexico and came to the United States when I was about 5 years old, and had the opportunity to experience a lot of different cultural and socioeconomic spaces. And that really informed my identity and my outlook on a lot of different factors in our communities. I had a track to become an artist, and I was pursuing a master's degree at MIT, at their art, culture, and technology program. And one day, suddenly, I felt sick and I didn't know what was happening. And it morphed into a lot of different things that I had to make sense of, to the point where it became a hurdle to actually execute at the level that I was used to in my graduate studies. So I had to take a leave of absence. And that was when I started looking at food and nutrition as a way to heal myself and to wean myself off of medication. And that really had a huge impact on me once I started to see food as the main key. Thereafter, I started developing my own hydroponic systems in my basement, because we didn't have enough land to start a farm when I lived with my family in Ohio. And that led me to seek out mentorship for farming from some of our local producers, who were primarily Amish farmers in Ohio. And I came across a farm that was using regenerative, biodynamic, and hydroponic approaches to food production. And that really opened my eyes to seeing the diversity of practices involved in agriculture. The one kind of important element that this farmer brought to light for me was to see farming as a public service and as a way to heal my community and to reestablish and right our relationships with our food, with our planet, and with our animals. And that has stayed with me, up until now. That was back in 2012. So I came to Colorado in 2017, and I started Emerald Gardens, a microgreens operation in a small 100 square foot passive solar greenhouse in Broomfield, Colorado. And that was my first kind of adventure into both farming and business. And I knew that for me, it was important to maintain that integrity that the farmer bestowed upon the practice of farming and agriculture. And that has always been at the forefront of my operations and my enterprises, is the values of community wealth and well-being, as well as establishing a level of sustainability for agriculture and ensuring that we have those protections for animal welfare and worker dignity throughout the entire supply chain. And that really got me involved in different conversations. As Woody mentioned, I'm a part of a lot of different organizations and boards. So I get to see where different people are coming from in terms of their understandings of food systems. So when we had the opportunity to engage with Slow Money, it was like a dream come true, because for the longest time, it was so hard for us to get funding and to get things off the ground. And, to my detriment, I accumulated a lot of credit card debt just to start a farm with the values in mind and with the objective of developing a sustainable form of food production for our communities. So, when I first met Woody, I was like, I want to start. And he was like, what is your history? What is like, what's your track record? I'm like, I'm new. And it was the values conversation that really kind of opened up Slow Money to see, hey, there might be something of impact here. And so when we received the first 0% loan, or our only 0% loan from Slow Money, it gave us the opportunity to build a road into our farm, because previously you couldn't get through if it was muddy. And it also gave us the opportunity to acquire our food safety certification, which enabled us to increase our market outreach, to work with institutions, and to connect with other buyers that required that food safety certification, which I learned later on was an exclusionary kind of practice or element for small scale farmers. It's very, very difficult to acquire that certification and to participate in kind of the large scale supply chains for different wholesale markets, institutions, and what have you. So that was huge. That was a huge stepping stone for us. And we knew that was a blessing, as much as the land that we have at Emerald Gardens, our farm, is a blessing. We have 35 acres. We saw this also as an opportunity to steward that opportunity and to really use it to advance our mission. So as much as Slow Money was helping us as individual farmers, we wanted to double that impact by how we could really support our communities with fresh food in a way that was sustainable, and to prove the model and the concept of community supported investments, but also a regenerative, kind of sustainable and resource stewarding approach to creating a food production opportunity for the Denver metro area. And, we started to make our payments, and then COVID hit. And we were like, oh man, that's going to really like set us back. Before COVID shut down our restaurants, we lost a major partner, and that's Lucky's Market. They had 6 locations in Colorado, all of which closed except for 2 locations. And we were due upwards of like $10,000 to start off the year. So already we were like, man, we have our loan payment to make for Slow Money, and I don't know how we're going to make it. This is really a critical situation for us. So we were really at the brink of losing our farm. Overnight, COVID shut down our markets, and we lost over 60% of our revenue. Thankfully, our values that compelled us to build relationships with food pantries allowed those previous attempts to become our kind of godsend. And the food pantries engaged with us when they received funding to address the increasing need of food insecurity. And they started purchasing from us, and that allowed us to mitigate our economic loss. But it also revealed to us the opportunities that we have to develop an equitable and regenerative form of food distribution. And that was when I started to see another element of the food ecosystem in Colorado. As a farmer, I was able to experience those hurdles at the beginning to start a farm. But now as a food distributor, I began to realize what an equitable, resilient, and regenerative food system actually looked like. It's communities partnering with each other and organizations to purchase local food based on a values kind of basis. And we started to incorporate food from other farmers, and that blossomed into a company that we started called East Denver Food Hub, which now connects local farmers and producers to markets in the Denver metro area and in Boulder. And through our survival, we understood the mechanics of distribution, logistics, value chain coordination, sourcing, and all of the different elements that are needed to get food from one place to another. But we're doing it on a specific set of values, because we can't create the food and agricultural resilience that we want to see if we don't have those values in place of equity, community wealth building, sustainability, animal welfare. worker dignity. And that's not possible if we don't have the support of our communities, whether through resource or advocacy. All of that to say that my experience really informed the way that we now have conversations at the table. So as Woody mentioned, some of my many hats also include being a member of the Denver Sustainable Food Policy Council to recommend mayoral advisories to the city and to the mayor to basically support the equitable food systems that we're trying to engage. And the last thing I want to say before we open it up is that I think as much as COVID has caused a lot of harm and a lot of challenges for many communities, it's revealed a lot of the inconsistencies and a lot of the problems that were there from the very beginning. Now we have something to work with. Now we're able to identify solutions. And the fact that we all were at one point touched by COVID reveals that we want to do things differently, and that we're at a moment in our culture, in our time, to really innovate new models, new partnerships, new ways that capital can flow to the people that need it the most. We've all heard about carbon sequestration. Well, I want to propose an idea. What does capital sequestration look like? If we can keep the carbon within our soils to promote longevity in agriculture, maybe we can do the same thing with our capital.
That's not a provocative enough idea, Roberto. Can you go back and think some more about it? All right, so we already went over our little self-imposed time limits. You all knew we would. And obviously we will want to hear a lot more from Roberto going in the future. I just want to call out, I'm just glancing in the chat room. So we have Mary Spadaro on from Hawaii. We have Robert Pekin on from Australia. I don't know why I'm just picking geographically far away places, I guess, and congratulating you guys for coming on. I guess it's early in your morning, your time, especially for you, Robert. So I do see, a couple of technical questions already that are kind of in the how it's going to work. And Linda Ilsley, I am going to ask you at some point to say something, but not quite yet, just because we just did too much talking for me and Roberto, and I want to get other people in the conversation. But just make sure you chime in at some point, Linda. Okay. Linda is one of the organizers of the Slow Money group in Durango, Colorado, that's making the 0% loans. And two of the questions I've already seen in there, one is from Mary Spadaro and one is from Susan Aram of Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, which is a beautiful venture that has gotten funding from some slow money people, not 0% loans per se. They've been very flexible though. But both Susan and Mary Spadaro, who's our slow money person in Hawaii, and she is not, neither of them are doing 0% loans. I just want to be clear so there's no confusion for people. Ask sort of questions like, how is this going to work type questions. So I think I just want to say a few general things about how it's going to work, because I know there are lots of questions and we're not going to get them all answered in one call. But I think the best way to kind of put a frame over the how it's going to work thing is like, this is not a fund. It is not a fund. These soil groups are not funds. They are collaboratives. And I think this is a good segue on what Roberto said. And I again, in the spirit of making sure this is a genuine conversation, I will not give a complete answer to this. I'll give a partial answer, and then I'll ask Mary and Susan to say anything they want, and then anybody else to chime in. Because it's not a fund, and because it is values driven, to use Roberto's words, the group can decide to do things that an individual, like an investment committee, would never do. When you get an investment committee together, no matter how cool the institution, I'm going to say something kind of slightly snarky now. A camel is a horse, invented by a committee, right? So when you get a committee together to make decisions that involve risk taking, obviously things get constrained in various ways. And the kinds of risks we have taken in Soil Boulder we have specifically, this addresses Mary's question. She kind of asked, what do you do when people want a loan but they're not ready? So I'm sort of answering that question, Mary, a little bit. We made a few loans, and Boulder has made around $300,000 in loans, about 19 loans, the Soil Boulder Group. And a few of them, we knew that were super risky. We just knew that like no quote regular lending group would approve that loan. And for various reasons, you can call them values, you can call them creative decision-making, relationship, trust, desire for radical change, whatever those reasons are, we made the loans anyway. We've only had one failure so far, and it's not a total failure. That person is still struggling to pay back her $5,400 loan, just to give you an idea of the scale. It happened to be the first one we did. So Mary, there's no formal answer to your question about what do we do with the high risk situation. The point is we are not running this like a portfolio where we're penciling things out and going, oh my God, we had a loss, we can't do another loan. We exist to push money into the community so we can sequester the capital, to use Roberto's language. We're about sequestering the capital, not managing for a certain hurdle rate or a certain kind of a rate of return. And I know that's a complicated set of ideas. And then Susan Aram from Iowa asked, well, how do you pay for it? Like, who runs the thing? How do you manage the costs? And I just need to quickly share the anecdote of about a month ago, I was on my way here coming through New York, and we had an event in New York. We had about 25 people to talk about Bitcoin, and I did a reading from my book. And one of the attendees was a hedge fund manager who has been tracking slow money for a while. I've been in touch with him over the years. And he just keeps going, God, this is so cool. This is really great, but you got to charge like at least 2% interest. You just got to charge some interest. Like, how are you going to cover the cost? What about the thing? And just so you know, he gave us $5,000 the next morning, just as in the spirit of, I want this to happen. But he keeps asking me the questions like, we got to charge interest rates, and he keeps going back to transaction costs and whatnot. And so, Susan, the answer to your question of how the costs are going to get covered are two ways. Lots of volunteer labor. Lots of volunteer labor. That's what we do in Boulder. And a continuing flow of membership donations every year. That's why it's a nonprofit. And so the nonprofit group can decide, when you have enough money in the coffers, do we want to hire staff? Do we actually want to pay for some staff? And we had a full-time staff person for 6 months in Boulder, and then stopped for different reasons. It's not important to go into all that. It was a little early in our history to do it, and so we stopped. But I am sure that we will have some kind of staffing in Boulder again in the future as the pool grows. But the whole idea is to gradually grow these pools of capital so the group of people can decide if you want to invest in leadership or whether you can keep depending on volunteerism. Very incomplete answers. Sorry they took so long to give. Randy, I'm just going to call you out because you were the first one to donate. You're a wild man. You're a wild man. That's Randy Jewett, Austin, Texas, and Western Pennsylvania. So thank you, Randy. All right. So the floor is now open. Somebody unmute yourself and chime in.
I just want to say one thing, Woody, that stuck with me that you said was, when I was coming to you about, hey, we're getting opportunities, folks oftentimes misclassify East Denver Food Hub as a nonprofit, and we're a social enterprise. And so because of the work and the model that we're doing, lots of people have come to express interest in supporting us, right? Including investors. And, I was talking to Woody and I was saying, this is great. I love that, people are now paying attention to not only, how food is grown, but also how food is getting to people in their communities. And one thing that Woody said was like, it's great, yeah, but people still want to take money out of the system. As we're already trying to hobble to get things started, we need to keep more money in the system. And that's why it is so critical that these 0% loans are really like stewarded in this way. A lot of the times help comes in a way of extraction. And we need to really create regenerative forms that allow us to heal, but also to grow.
Tim Merkel is worried that everyone will have access to the chat room afterwards. So don't panic if he can't access it. So this is being recorded and the chat room will be available later. We'll follow up with everybody. So.
Hey, Woody, you have some logistical questions being asked, which I'm trying furiously to answer via the chat. Can I just jump in super quick?
Yes, introduce yourself and then go ahead.
Okay. So Linda Ilsley, one of the original founders of Four Corners Slow Money. We're located in the Four Corners, as the name says, and we chose that as our first vote, is we wanted to be inclusive of the people in our around here. So we have very difficult growing conditions. It's very dry and the season is very, very short. And through 14 years of having owned a local restaurant that started at the local farmers market, I became very aware of how perilous the journey of a farmer can be, and heard stories even of my wheelbarrow broke at the beginning of the season and I did not have the money with which to buy a new wheel. So I had to quit. That combined with an skyrocketing amount and level of children coming into the restaurant with either chronic physical conditions that were deemed to be adult conditions, such as cancer, you name it, allergies, etc., which drove me or made me very, very concerned and got me into, like Roberto, to looking at the connection between food and health, as well as my older sister having cancer and dying from it. So all of this to give you the context that this isn't about interest rates. This is especially now with COVID and what COVID has taught us, this is truly about us recreating a localized economy that supports not just the people with jobs, but that it's also allowing us to reclaim our health as well as community. It's so much more than anything I could have imagined. So Mary, to answer some of your questions very quickly, we started with just those of us in the group, the 5 putting in $250 each. Then a few people donated some more. Then Slow Money National gave us a challenge to match $5,000 that they donated to the group to get us jumpstart us. And somebody else locally donated another 5,000, and then we sent out a challenge to the community to help us match that amount. Up to date, 3 years later, we've done $55,000 in loans, all peer-to-peer lending and a revolving fund. And we have, I mean, what it's done for the farmers, the increase in production. One of the farms has added, they've done over 100,000 pounds of food production, organic food production. And I invite you to think, you know, in this world where everything is so topsy-turvy, for me, real wealth is when a farmer plants a seed and a carrot or broccoli or cauliflower comes out of it. Or when a lamb has, you know, sorry, I get emotional, a lamb or a cow or a pig has another fowl or another little animal is born. That's real increase in wealth that is based on something very, very solid, that is going to create jobs and that is going to make us healthier. And if the farmer is as conscious as Roberto is, that is also going to ensure that generations in the future are going to have healthy guts and are going to be able to grow food. So we're talking about a lot of things in this. Do we believe that interest rates are important? We struggled with that initially. There were people that said, unless you do interest rates, we will not invest. And we just simply said, then you don't understand the concept. We believe in the goodness of people and that farmers generally have chosen a lifestyle that you got to be a little bit crazy, sorry, Roberto, to choose to be a farmer, as crazy as you are to open a restaurant, because it's gambling. These people deserve a break for having made a choice to grow food that is going to help us all stay healthy and reinvent our local economies. Yeah, I can't give them enough money. If I had more, I would give them more. And if they can't pay it back, I am sure there's going to be a damn good reason why. So far, nobody has defaulted. So if you have any questions about how we function, feel free to contact me directly, and I can go into further detail on that.
I'm kind of glancing at the chat room. I'd rather have somebody just chime in. Somebody unmute yourself and say whatever you're desiring to say, whether it be a comment, a question, an anecdote. I really would like to hear more voices if we can. I know it's a little hard with this many people.
All right, I'll go for it.
Right.
My name's Allie Robinson. I'm based in Connecticut, but work for a group called RSF Social Finance based in the Bay Area. I've been doing ag lending for the better part of over a decade. I'm curious, is part of the idea with these convenings, establishing almost like a learning collaborative to take kind of lessons learned and best practices from individuals and, thought leaders like Linda and who was it? Someone else had a chat in here, Sarah, I believe. Susan, sorry, Susan. So yeah, that's my question. Is part of the idea to leverage this time together to help educate each other and learn from each other?
Yeah, absolutely, Allie. So we're going to have to figure out how best to use this time together and whether we have to structure it more or not, whether we want to have certain kind of workshops that are more technical or not. There's a whole bunch of things here. This is the first one. So the purpose of today, to be really specific to your answer, is kind of comes before that, meaning we launched the site a few months ago. We just got it live. We've done no promotion yet, other than I think most of you on this call probably saw the email that went out about 3 weeks ago that showed the video. Be interesting to know how many of you actually did see that or not. And then we sent out an invitation to this little get together with almost no information about what we were going to do. We just said, we're having a Beetcoin dialogue. And that wasn't just to be kind of goofy. We decided it was important just to put a signal out there and see who showed up. And I'll just say again, honestly, we really were expecting maybe a dozen or so people. We didn't think anything like this would happen. And we're learning, we did have almost 300 or over 300 registrations, and 107 looks like was the peak attendance. So we'll learn, we have to kind of figure this out. Obviously there's a lot of sharing that needs to happen. Look, we want to use technology. I'll speak for myself. I want to use technology is obviously nowhere near as much fun as being in the room with people. But there's no carbon, time, money, carbon. And now we got COVID. So I think we have to get better at using technology, whatever the limitations of it are. And everyone kind of says they're zoomed out and they're sick of Zoom meetings and everything. But we're all sick of COVID too, but we have to deal with it. So we have to deal with the limitations of technology. And Allie, I would just say we're going to learn how formal, not formal isn't the right word, how structured to make some of these sessions or not. The original impulse was to have it completely unstructured for a while and just see what happens. I don't think, I'll say something that may be a little provocative, and some people may not agree with this. But I don't think the thing that's limiting Beetcoin from just being a cool idea to being a huge thing is anything technical. I think it's an attitude, it's people, it's awareness, I see Randy Jewett giving me a thumbs up. So I'm not as worried about the technical aspects. Not that the point is, as we engage people are going to come with all different kinds of experience sets. And so they're going to need different kinds of help, and they're going to ask different kinds of questions. That's kind of the next thing. Right now, I want to see if we can, I want us to get to like our first, I'll just say it as an entrepreneur. I want to get to our first 1,000 donors. That's a completely random number. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. It's bigger than, it's 4 figures, Slow Money has never had an engagement tool online. I want to go back to what I said at the beginning, which I kind of glossed over. Slow Money is a meme, it's a philosophy, it's an idea. And from my experience, I'm 70, been around for a while, done some different things. It's had a remarkable amount of impact for just an idea. And we have not done nearly a good enough job at capitalizing isn't the right word, at at leveraging, enhancing the impact of this idea to get more stuff to happen. And so that's where the focus on Beetcoin came in. And I want to see, we need to get the Beetcoin pump primed. We need to get dollars starting to flow through it. And then we need to all work together to grow it. So I'm way more concerned about getting the pump primed at the beginning. And I think we have enough to show for it in terms of what we did in our first decade and the quality of the people and what we're trying to do, to just get the pump primed and then to start working together, Ali, with all of us, bring different tools to this to figure out how do we begin getting better at it? How do we help people organize soil groups? I want to pick up on what, I hope this is useful, just one thing that Linda said. She said in passing, oh, and then Slow Money gave us a $5,000 grant, and then we matched it here, and then suddenly, so we gave $5,000, somebody in Durango gave 5,000, then another person in Durango gave 10,000, matched those two other ones. And that's a micro story of the way Beetcoin is going to work if it's successful, meaning Beetcoin will be a source of funding that can be used as matching grants to start local soil groups and grow them.
Right. And Woody, I wanted to just jump in quick. I'm Tana Schultz, and I'm on the Slow Money board, and also helped start and have been kind of really key here to our soil group, making 0% loans here. We have that model here. And, you know, I just want to really punctuate again the importance of, if people have not gone onto the website and really see what Beetcoin is funding, get familiar with that. It is a very focused project of the Slow Money Institute. It is collecting money so that we can help replicate these, really, for what they are, pretty successful groups that we have here in Colorado and others starting around. And that's the idea of it. So, you know, Linda really kind of said a lot of things, but she really did capture the spirit of it. I put a few things in the chat room about how important it is to have a soil group be really led by volunteers and a strong community bond and committed people that want to continue to make their charitable donations. And like Roberto said, sequester that money in their community to do this good work. So that's my chime in about this, because we don't have too much longer. And I think before the next one, it'd be really great. People want to come back on if they're really schooled on the site and what the purpose of this Beetcoin is.
Yeah, thanks, Tana. I do think if following this call, people go and just relax in a careful way, go through the site. The How It Works page will probably answer 3/4 of your questions, I think. Not that you won't have follow-on questions after you read it, but it explains the nuts and bolts. And we haven't, I'm realizing now, there are two parts to this. There's these local groups that are making the 0% loans, and Tana talked a little bit about it, and Linda talked about it. And then there's the crowdfunding site, which we are now attempting to launch and scale out. These are two parts of a funding system. They are both, in a sense, different kinds of social enterprises, right? The soil groups are intensely local, hyper-local, relationship-based, lots of meetings. Some of you have probably heard me say this ad nauseum. Oscar Wilde's thing about the whole problem of socialism is it requires too many evening meetings. And then I always add that slow money is not socialism. It is a highly sociable form of capitalism. So I got it off my chest. Tana, thank you for tolerating me to say that. But I would just urge everybody on the call to just hold in their consciousness. There are two things here. There are local groups that are hyper local and are making 0% loans by majority vote of members, one person, one vote, no matter how much money you put in. So we have local members that have made donations up to as high as $50,000 in a given calendar year. And then we have farmers coming in at $25 in Boulder. I'm talking about Boulder now. They're all pretty similar. All the groups are pretty similar. And then the $25 person has a vote, just like the $50,000 person has a vote. We're making 0% loans. When the loans get repaid, they recirculate. And yes, we are going to lose some loans. The model only really works long-term as if new members keep coming in every year, existing members, enough of them stay, and we gradually grow the pool of capital. The loans are repaying very nicely in Boulder, and they are repaying very nicely in Carbondale. And Linda just told you that they're starting to get repayments in Durango as well. So hold that part. And then we've got this internet thing that we are now trying to do. And do I need to confess to people that I have no internet experience? Isn't that obvious? We've tried to create a platform that we think can hold the energy of what we're trying to do. We've had lots of exploratory discussions with people, but the question of how we're going to get it out there and how we're going to get enough people to see it and get enough, and whether we can get enough people to click is kind of an art form. And I'll leave it at that. Just hold those two things in your head: a crowdfunding site connected to these local groups. You will see on the Beetcoin site, and in some of the correspondence and other things that we send out, we're kind of floating the idea that we think the soil groups could be like the next wave following land trusts, meaning local groups that are doing something out of the box to, I'll use Roberto's language, sequester capital for the local food system. Just for today, I'll use that lingo. So how many of these groups could there be? Who knows? One in every state, come on. You know, some states could probably support a couple of dozen of them, the big states. So that's what I have in my head. That's what I'm hoping we can do. And I do think there's an appetite for it in the world based on my experience, but that doesn't mean we have a clear strategy of how to get there. And we're putting this call out through this event to begin trying to spread the conversation, to see what ideas you guys have and how many people we can attract. Carol Pepper Hewitt, who's a slow money leader par excellence in North Carolina, put in the chat room. I don't know if it was to everybody or to me. I can't find it this second. Carrie said, "What are we hoping to get out of these conversations?" So I think I just said what I'm hoping to get out of the conversation, right? I want this to be the first of many, and I want us to begin collaborating actively on growing Beetcoin. That's what I want. I'm open to hearing what other people want. Or
Woody, I'm going to jump in here.
Hey.
Hi, this is so fun. For those of you that are new, I can't tell you how much we all miss each other. Those of us that have been at this for a decade or more used to be able to be in each other's company, and that meant a lot to us. But I like the lack of carbon footprint of this meeting. So we've never had a place where we could pool resources. I don't know if this is what this is, Woody. So I'm out on a limb here. But for example, Mary in Hawaii, she may have more people that have the money, but she may not have the projects. Whereas Michael in Virginia, where he's got all that farmland, he may have the projects up the wazoo, but he doesn't have as many people making the donations. And so this gives us a place, as much as I really like. And for those of you that don't know, I've been matching lenders and borrowers for about 12 years here in North Carolina. And we've done about 300 loans. We've moved several $100,000, but I like to make an Asheville loan.
Wait a minute.
I like to have an Asheville, huh?
Not several $100,000, several $1 million.
Oh yeah, sorry, several $1 million. Anyway, sorry, some dollars. Anyway, but it's really nice if a person from Asheville can loan to a person in Asheville. That's sweet, right? And that's relationship building. That will happen. But there will also be money that I donate to a nonprofit, where the money I donate to the money in Connecticut. I live in North Carolina, and it helps somebody in Connecticut, even though I'm donating it from North Carolina. So that's altruism, is that way. We're going to give money to the greatest good to the greatest number. So if there is a way, we've never had this before, and it's really it's brilliant, and I'm glad to see it, that if there is a fund now where we can we can put money in one pot and then use the pipelines that some of us have established to get the money out to the farmers. It isn't that hard. I will just tell you one quick story. I had a farmer reach out to me recently. He needs $10,000 to put up deer fencing because he's expanding his farm. I said, well, David, who loaned you money 8 years ago when you did your first expansion? He said, oh yeah, Frank, and Frank did. I said, well, let's ask Frank. And it was like it was no problem. Frank and his wife did another loan. He'd already paid them back years ago. So I did nothing but have a phone conversation with two people, and $10,000 changed hands. So we're not, this isn't hard. It's fun. And I'm going to stop now, but I just want to, for those of you that are new at this, this is very cool.
Oh, that was beautiful. Woody, could I jump in, please?
Yeah,
My name is Tim Merkel. I live up here in Longmont, Colorado. And I, first of all, really loved your book. It was inspiring. But I've just been watching this from afar. I I want to throw money at it, and I definitely plan to go to the Beetcoins site and become a member. But I'm also thinking about what the woman that was just talking said about, you know, the projects that a local farmer might have in their soil group. I've often wondered about how I could get involved in volunteering time, and is there a place that the farmers can kind of post, hey, I've got a fence building project that I need labor, I just need help, and me in my local area could go out and volunteer a day of work for them. Is that something that the site will make available? And then secondly, another idea that I've had is, you know, I work for a very, very large multinational corporation that has 46,000 employees, and we're very, very sustainably oriented. And if I could get information to our HR department about the nonprofit aspect of Slow Money and Beetcoin, I might really be able to impact a lot of other people to all over the country to participate. So I'll stop at that.
So Tim, nice to meet you. Thank you for that. Did you say you were in Longmont?
Yes,
Okay, so do you know Brian Copham?
I do not.
Okay, Brian, are you on someone? Brian, where are you?
I think Brian's on.
Brian, come in, please.
Woody, he had to step out.
Oh, he had to step out. Bummer. Hi, Soraya. So Tim, Brian lives in Longmont. He's on the board of Slow Money. He used to be the executive director of Boulder County Farmers Markets, and now he's running a $30 million loan fund for the state of Colorado, Department of Agriculture. So you guys are neighbors. The very first thing you guys need to do is go have lunch at Babette's.
Yes, yes.
or something. Okay, so I'm serious.
Yeah, thank you. I will probably find his contact information.
I'll make sure I follow up with you.
And Tim, I'm Tana again. So our soil group in Boulder, that's something that, you know, the idea of volunteer, a lot of our farmers do that, where they post things and they ask for volunteers. And we just have to get you involved in our soil group in Boulder. So
Cool.
If you send me, Tim, if you just send me your contact directly to Tana Schultz in the chat room.
I'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it. Nice to chat.
And just a quick brushstroke on the other stuff, because it ties together a little bit what Carol was saying about altruism. Was it Carol who said that? Yeah, Carol was saying, what if somebody in one city wants to do something? And so your question, Tim, was a very hyper-local one, the way I heard it. In other words, if you want to volunteer, it has to be to a farm in your community, obviously. And then Carol was raising a more systemic question about, like, how do we get resources between communities, and wouldn't it be cool if this was a way to do it? The whole point here is to begin building a systemic approach to this, so that we have local nodes to which we're providing some kind of support that is not all local. And the way that would work is, in my mind, a very large number of small donors chipping in the spirit of what Carol said. Like, I see this, we're building a new system. There needs to be a new flow of capital that is just dedicated to these local groups and making them all work as best as they can. It's not about what I can get for me down the street per se, as a funder. So I'm cognizant of the time. It is now my time, 8 o'clock. So we've been at it for an hour. So 6 people have donated almost $2,000 between the 6 of them so far on this call. So I want to thank the 6 of you. But the reason I called it out at that moment wasn't because of the amount. It was to say kind of the opposite. We need lots of small donors. I mean, yes, it would be great if we had $100,000 donors. I'm not going to thank the person who gave $1,000, but thank you. And yes, when Slow Money started the first year, we had 40 people who gave $1,000 without me asking. We called them founding members. So these, you know, so maybe we have a founding member of Beetcoin now who just gave $1,000, but I don't even want to say that, because to get Beetcoin to scale, we need 100,000 people giving $50, right? or we need 1 million people giving $100, whatever it is. Heifer International, last time I knew their numbers, has about 1 million people a year giving roughly $100. That's $100 million a year flow of capital. Kiva at its peak was up to about $1 million a day. I'm not sure what they're doing now. I don't think they're near that now, but the point is lots of small people contributing. And I'd like to see if we can accomplish that. And that with that innovative flow of capital, we, meaning the Beetcoin advisors, the Slow Money Board, and whatever structures we need to create as a group to manage this going forward, once we get the pump prime, we will deploy that capital to build a new funding system. The purpose of the system is to be hyper-local. The purpose of the system is to get money through the pump, if you will, out to the local levels, and then the money stays local and recirculates local, and all the individual funding decisions get made locally. That's the critical thing. So it's not a centralized fund, it's just a centralized, it's a conduit for getting money from lots of small donors down to these local groups. And then if I tie this back to what Ali raised, obviously we have to build our capacity to support through technical support and other things, the formation of these groups. So creating a game plan, providing some form of administrative back office, possibly. We're nowhere near that now. And I don't presume to know the exact structures that we will need. But the goal is to keep the Slow Money Institute, the pump, if you will, as small as it can humanly be, to get the money through it and get it out to the local groups. And then to have all the decision-making and capacity building happen at the local levels. Have this be as decentralized as possible. And I want to pick up, I think Carol said the word altruism, and I'm just going to pick up on it because I think we have to honor, let's see the time. We still have 83 people on. It's been an hour. I'll stay on, of course. Those who know me know that I can keep going. But I want to be sensitive to people's time. I just want to say that the questions about how this is going to work and why 0%, all these things, are basically asking, why do we need a whole new kind of funding system? Why do we need something this radically different? And I do feel very strongly, based on my whole career and certainly the last 10 years of Slow Money, that there is a demand for something that is radically different. Now, is it a demand from just 10,000 of us? I don't think so. I think it's a bigger number of people than that. Can we tap the demand through Beetcoin? We're going to find out. It seems like a good enough brand to me, and with apologies for seeming like I'm congratulating us for that. I'm not. I'm just saying it's what we have, and we're running with it. It is the decade of COP26. I call it the decade of Greta. That's not bullshit. That's like a real thing. I know I don't need to remind us all. The perfect is the enemy of the good. This is good. If we can make it perfect, we'll make it perfect. Maybe we can make it perfect, but probably not. But I think it's pretty good. Let's make it better, which is a really funny way to get back to better.com to say we live in a crazy world where everything is hyper fast, transactional, remote, anonymous, goofy shit. Pardon my French. And we are trying to do something that is a true complement, a true alternative, not to replace all that stuff, but to provide a meaningful complement, a counterbalance. And there is a spirit of altruism there, a spirit of humanism, a spirit of trust, a spirit of being willing to take losses, of willing to take risks, of sharing risk in a different way. So I hope we can engender all that. And Tim, I don't want to forget the practical implications of what you said. That's exactly, we need stuff like this, linkages to networks and people, and help us get the word out. So we'll definitely follow up with you guys. Now, I want to be cognizant of the time. I want to remind everybody, maybe we need an hour and a half for these things in the future. I don't know, just to make sure there's enough time for us to kind of do something. Maybe we need to break into small groups. Maybe there's a lot of formatting things we need to figure out. This is the very first one. My initial idea, which was, Randy, I'll call on you 1 second, or I'll not call on you, I'll shut up in a second, is I didn't know how often we should do this. I had no idea. I said, let's do it once a month. People are zoomed out, that we don't want to bother people. But somehow we have to find a sweet spot. I was thinking maybe we could just have the same time every month and just let people know that's it, you're available. It's kind of like we did Wine and Cheeses in Boulder before COVID, just the third Tuesday of every month at 5:30. And people knew, and they just opted in if they wanted to.
A farm finance thing called Beetcoin instead of Bitcoin.
Whoops, hang on. I don't know who that is who's speaking. Randy, hold your thought for 1 second. Let's see who this is. And then Randy, why don't you go if that's okay? Yeah, say who you are. I see your picture. Whoops. Can anybody else hear her? I can't hear her. Oh, I see your name now, Tabby. All right, Tabby, try again. There's no audio right now. Randy, while she's trying, let's
I
give
was
her-
not trying to do that. I was not raising my hand.
Oh, okay. Hi. All right, Randy, go ahead. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to say briefly, following up on what Tim said, and I posted it on the chat, and Woody, when we met in Boulder, I mentioned it. To me, a corollary to getting money flowing is to have really clear, compelling need, which is some of the things that you all are talking about. I think that's our job, not farmers' jobs. Farmers' jobs is to farm. This organization, we need to get people out talking to farmers with a notepad, writing down what they need help with. We have to put it up on the Beetcoin site and on local boards. And then when we start talking to people about making a donation, we show a list that shows what people need. And that's going to get people moving. There is going to be suspicion to say, why am I giving to this national organization? So you say, here's why, because here's 25 projects in your area that we're going to help with, but we need the money. And some of these people, and that builds in the trust. So I just wanted to, if you look on the site of the project I'm working on now in Austin, it's called The Gift. We have a simple form on the website for people to apply for a mini grant, $200. And as soon as they fill in the form, it makes a public page of their post, of their request. So whether they get money or not, it creates a website where these posts, what people want to do is going to show up, and it's self-generated as soon as people fill it in. So something like that could work really easily on the site, where you just let people fill it in, and it doesn't even have to be the farmers that fill it in. It could be groups of volunteers from our group that just say, hey, I went out to Bob's farm. Here's a picture of what he's trying to do. Here's how much money he needs. And it just generates a page on the website as soon as you fill it in.
Okay, so Randy, I have a suggestion, because just again, being cognizant of time, and people are starting to drop off. We're down to 68. We're down to 68. So I see that Ali, thank you for giving me the heads up that some hands are raised here. This is Ali Giorsi. We have two Alis on here. So Brian Copham, have you been trying to say something for a while? He might have been saying goodbye. He has to go to another meeting, knowing him. Okay. And then there's I believe it's a man whose last name is Czech. I'm just remembering this from the registration list. Are you trying to say something?
Woody, Joni Clar's trying to say something.
Okay, Joni, chime in.
Hi there. I'm so thrilled that this is coming together, Woody. And a couple of things. I'm here in New York now, and I have, at this time of year, I think it's really important that we try and focus on the giving season that people are in. And I'd really recommend, instead of monthly getting together, that right now we launch with at least once a week. There's a lot of people, a lot of momentum, and a lot of collaborations possible. I'd like to host some things here in Westchester, where I live, up in the woods. And there's Solinger's Orchards that I work with, Katona Nurseries, both that would be, excellent old family farms that would love to host a getting to know you and learn more about this event so we could get the word out. I also hooked them up with one of the great new restaurants in New York. There are 4 restaurants called Honey Brains started, and it's all on nutritional health and brain health, and from the honeybees and nutritional food and the farmers and the regenerative systems. I'm very close to the owner of that, and I'm hosting events for her. So I like to host events at the 4 restaurants, Honey Brains in New York City. They're really cool places, and we could, we could spread a lot of information and raise some money and really get some momentum going. So I wanted to offer some of those things. I also am close to the Mohawk Indian tribes, and I'm doing the gardens and longhouses with the Mohawk Indians. That would be another great place for us at some point in time, maybe.
All right, so Joni, great to see you, and thank you for for those ideas and for chiming in. And I'm looking at the chat room. So I want to flag what Joni just said. So I'm going to follow up. We are going to follow up with everybody. I'm going to do my best to actually personally follow up with everybody if I can, to just make sure that I capture your thoughts and ideas. Now, the most immediate one is how often we want to do what. So Joni just said once a week. I'm sure everybody rolled their eyes when she said that. But that's okay. The point is we need to figure this out, like how often we're going to connect. And I'm all for regular informal communications. And it doesn't sound like a terrible, terrible thing to me. We could possibly say, you know, every Thursday at X time, I'll just go online and see if anybody shows up. I'd be willing to try that for a while. But I think once in a while, we want to have something a little more than that, meaning a guest and some structure, whatever. So the point is, stay tuned. We're going to figure out how often to do what. And we'll take a little trial and error to figure that out. We do have the holidays coming, so there's obviously going to be a break, and then we'll kind of get in gear again after New Year's. Now, I want to recognize there were two questions here that were there were comments in the chat room from Dan Litwiller and Scott Helm, and they both mentioned a kind of a project or a thing that's going on now called DeFi, meaning DE and the capital FI, like D-finance. And so the whole thing about disintermediation and decentralization and de-escalation and deceleration, all these things. There's a lot of things going on right now that are kind of synergistic. So I just want to ask if either Dan or Scott want to say, it has to be quick, obviously, given the time constraints, but do you want to say like a minute about the DeFi thing or what you put in the chat room? If you're still there. They were there at 8:05 to 8:13 Eastern time. Okay, so they're not chiming in. I just wanted to.
Hey, sorry, this is Dan. I'm multitasking here with kids in the bathtub and all that good stuff. So it's a lot easier for me just to type. But I would just say, at some point, just just go Google DeFi, and go down the rabbit hole. Go check out Discord. These Discord servers. I have to admit that there's kind of it's something that the younger generation is doing. Yeah, and it's got a distinct sort of alien kind of feel to it for me, but it's a really kind of fascinating place. So I would encourage folks to take a look.
All right, and I sort of feel compelled to just say the following. So my approach at this point in life and in this project called Slow Money is be very action oriented. And again, perfect is the enemy of good. I often also quote T.S. Eliot, who said beware of trying to create a system so perfect that no man have to be good. And the whole cryptocurrency thing to me just feels a little bit like that. Now, again, I know I'm opening a can of worms, but I'll just lob it out there for future conversation. Trying to recreate a whole new system of money or a whole new kind of financial system is an absolutely noble, good thing. We should all be trying to do it in different ways because there's all kinds of problems with the existing system. But at the same time, we have to just be willing to roll our sleeves up and go down the street and help the farmer and take some of our fiat currency and put it to work in a different way. Just be concrete, practical, neighborly, sharing risk, not trying to create a whole new system that is technologically complicated and that creates all kinds of new intermediary schemes that are very well intentioned, but always create all kinds of unintended collateral, damage. So I realize I just said a bunch of provocative things. I just wanted to lop them out there. And that's why the brand Beetcoin is what it is, because it's obviously calling into question right there, like, really, cryptocurrency? Okay, fine, but there needs to be something else which is equal and opposite, if you will, in the Newtonian sense of an equal and opposite reaction, right? Something that is concrete, based on direct personal relationships and trust and local sense of place. Okay, so come on, it's 8:15. I've been trying to keep track of these things as we've been going. We'll get better. Hopefully we'll get better at managing these calls too going forward. So I believe we have about a dozen donors right now, which is fantastic. Thank you. Again, it's not about the money per se, but it is about the money because we got to get the money flowing. So thank you all so much for doing that. Any parting shots from anyone? I just want to be fair to people's time. I will stay on and gab for a while with people if you want to, but we're down to 56 people. Let me just look at my notes.
Hey, Woody. Hey,
Yeah.
Woody, this is Scott here on the
Hey, Scott.
Eastern. Hi,
Good.
Woody. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Well, I think the best thing that we've got going for us is it's not concrete. It's actually soil based. That's very different, right? And the key to all of this is collaboration between all of the people who we want to be growing our food, who want to be returning good health to the soil and creating that good health. And that's really what you've got. And you know, so you keep it based on that, and keep it based on how to include young people who want to get into farming, because we need as many as we can who don't have access to the soils that can grow good food. And if you keep it based on that, however it is, through any kind of collaboration, then you've got it.
Okay, sounds easy. Hey, so by the way, people haven't been saying anything about who they are, and I do know some of the people. I happen to know Scott a little. So Scott is a super, I never say super, I don't know why I'm saying it. Scott is an extremely accomplished, successful farmer, CSA farmer, author, NGO leader from Eastern Long Island. I mean, has amazing farm, amazing following. And so Scott, thank you for coming on. His farm, tell me if I have this right. Your farm, or at least the main farm, is on land that's owned by the Taconic Land Trust.
The Taconic Land Trust, yeah, correct. Yeah. So yeah, next time we'll talk about land trusts and collaboration. How's that?
Great topic, very important. So good. We'll just flag that.
Hey, Woody.
Yes,
so
go ahead.
quick, I think that a really important thing, our experience, and I believe some of the stories that I heard from the Boulder group, is in this world of internet and screens and disconnection, what our group has created has been community. Because when we get together to give the loans, we have a potluck at the local soup kitchen, which by the way is organic, so it's awesome. And we make a collective decision on who gets the loans. It's a one member, one vote policy for us. This is true democracy. And this is also bringing the community back together to feel and to understand that we have power between us to change our experience of what is happening in the world. The magic when we're short $4,000 to fund all of the farmers that applied, and everybody pitches in whatever they can, and we end up funding all of the loans, that feeling of we can do this, that feel good factor, that's priceless. And that's also what this is about. So I invite you to really consider this side, because it's beyond powerful.
So I guess Brian Coppa may not be on anymore. I think he did tell me he had another meeting that he had to go to. So Brian and I, just to remind people, Brian is former executive director of Boulder County Farmers Markets, which is like a $9 million operating nonprofit. You know, it's quite a substantial farmers market operation. And when we were forming the soil group in Boulder, the 0% loan group, he and I used to get together frequently, and we'd have a glass of wine. It'd be in the evening. We would look at each other and go, how can it possibly be this hard to organize something that is so much fun? I'm sort of picking up on Linda's thing, and meaning the spirit. And I see Michael and Florence Jones are on there, part of the Boulder group. I'll just say, from what I've seen, Soraya is on here, Soraya Smith, who's on the executive committee of the Boulder Soil Group. The spirit in the room, when you make a 0% loan, that is essentially by consensus. There's a vote. The votes are overwhelmingly positive. There's hardly ever a negative vote. I know it sounds idiotic from a fiduciary standpoint. It sounds absolutely like lunacy, but there's a lot of collective intelligence. I'm trying to weave a few threads here together. There's a lot of collective intelligence that goes into the process. By the time the farmer gets into the room to talk to the 40 people in the room, a lot of collective intelligence has already been exercised. You can call it vetting if you want, but it's not that formal. And I'm just telling you, the experience is extremely rewarding. It really, really is. I mean, there's like no question about it when you're in the room doing it. There's no question about it. So the question, coming back a little bit to what Scott was saying, is how do we get that out? How do we build a network that can experience that kind of collaboration? Roberto used the word values driven, you know, where the values, the collaboration, I'll call the word trust. Wendell Berry uses the word affection, where this beautiful comment made by a young NGO leader from Canada early on about shared risk, about why aren't we talking about sharing risk with the farmer instead of minimizing risk to the investor? There's just a bunch of beautiful things. That's why I wrote the book Aha. It's about people having moments where we say to ourselves, oh my God, aha, it can be different. It actually can be different, even though we're taught to use money in a certain way. We're taught to have all kinds of attitudes about money. We can actually use some of our money, not all of it, some of our money in a radically different way, and let all these other values, if you will, emotions, feelings, values, beliefs come to the fore. So I think in the interest of time, we should probably call the question. I want people, so my email address is woody@slowmoney.org, in case anybody doesn't know it by now. Please do not hesitate in contacting me directly with any questions and ideas. I will do my best to follow up with everybody to just see what we've started here, and then to make some recommendations as to when to do a next meeting. Before today, I was just thinking we do another one like the middle of January, just because it's the holiday season. We just let the holidays go by, and then we maybe do one, you know, maybe between January 10th and January 15th or something. That's just an initial brainstorming idea. So I'll talk to you all. We'll circulate stuff. We'll try to see how best to keep the energy flowing. And thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Any last comments from anybody else? All right. Peace. Have a great holidays, everybody. And I hope I get to talk to some of you or many of you directly in the next week or two when I follow up. Okay.
Thank you all. Happy holidays. Thank you, Woody. Thank you, all the farmers and everybody else.
Bye, everybody. Great to see you all.
Hey, Carol. See you, Carol.
Talk
Thanks,
soon.
buddy. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tana. Hey, Michael.
Oh,
bye.
see you next time.
Bye. I'm seeing everybody as you leave.
Fare thee well.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Woody, for doing this. I think
Jody.
it was
Jody,
just
thank you.
amazing, and not to wait till January. I would.
Okay. How did I know you were going to say that? All right.
I don't know. It's your psychic ability. That's
Yes,
it.
exactly.
Woody.
Yeah. Who is that? Is that Michael?
No, it's Jim
Oh,
Cochran.
Jim. Sorry. Hi, Jim.
I just thought of your next book title.
Uh-oh.
That's it. That's what it is. It's uh-oh. It's when after Bitcoin collapses and everybody goes around and says, what the hell do we do next? Your answer will, we'll have the answer, but the title of the book will be uh-oh.
All right. So Jim, because you're new and because we're only down to a few people and we can just kibitz a little bit. So I can't see you, by the way, so I guess you don't have video. So this is Jim Cochran, for those who are still on, who's like a pioneering organic strawberry grower in California, an amazing person. So Jim, have you ever met Brooke Levan from Sustainable Settings in Carbondale? Have you guys ever? Okay. You would have a blast.
Well, unless she was at Sundance, there was a couple of people.
He might have, I can't remember if he was at Sundance. I know it's good, but I can't remember. I think he was, I'm not sure. Okay, but here's the thing. So he and I have been kibitzing for a while about the following. If we ever do an in-person event again, or I suppose we could do this for an online event, and we might call the event AHA, just trying to use the branding of the book, and it's a positive thing, right? But the session, like we'd have one session that would be called AHA, one session would be called Oops, one session would be called Duh, and now we have another one. Uh-oh. So
it's a 4-part series.
I don't know who the poor other dozen people who are still on listening to this, what you're making of it, but please forgive us. Jim, I'm glad you were on. I don't know how long you're on. I didn't notice your name. There you are. Thank you for making the time. Sure. Anybody else offer any parting shots?
Well,
all right. All right, peace, everybody. We'll be in touch. So Joni, I'll follow up with you. We'll talk soon and we'll try to figure out what to do.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Excited about this.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. I guess I'm signing off. Thank you again. Bye.